Alrighty, Fish and Filtered, episode 66. No Isaac Azoot today, unfortunately, but I am here with Ely Sussman, founder of Fish on First, and we have a very, very special guest. He's our Phillies correspondent, I would say, Alex Carr. What's up? Excited to have you on. And a lot has happened for the Marlins in the past couple weeks, but for the Phillies too. They acquired Jesús Luzardo. Marlins get two pretty good prospects in return. So, how are we doing? Happy holidays, and excited to have you on.
I am just, as always, happy to be here, but also very excited to chat about this stuff. I feel like there's been a bit of a flurry of activity on the Phillies end of late, if you can call it that. I don't think these moves are necessarily the anticipated ones, but some of them are definitely, I think, making the fandom happier than others. But this one that we're going to talk about today, definitely a happier reaction to this one, I think.
And let's get right into it. So the Miami Marlins traded Jesús Luzardo to the Philadelphia Phillies along with Paul McIntosh in exchange for two prospects, Starlyn Caba and Emaarion Boyd. Alex, let's talk about this for the Phillies side. You guys get Jesús Luzardo, who would, in many other organizations, he slots towards the top of rotation. For you guys, he's going to be your 3-4 starter, maybe even 5. So it's a good situation to have in Philadelphia. You guys also get PMAC, who will probably slot into your AAA roster, maybe gets an on-roster invite. So just talk about that for Philadelphia, getting a frontline starter and getting McIntosh.
Yeah, I'm really I'll talk about Jesus, extensively, but I'm actually really intrigued by Paul McIntosh. Really good EV numbers. I know you guys love him.
Yeah.
Really, he hits the ball hard. Does a lot of things right. He's a great guy. As you guys emphasize time and time again. But he's some much needed AAA catching depth for the Phils. So that's actually, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Just because the Phillies really kind of needed some AAA catching depth. Because Rafael Marchand's probably going to make the opening day roster. Garrett Stubbs is probably going to start the year in AAA, barring injury to anybody. But it's going to be really interesting to see where Paul McIntosh kind of fits into the puzzle. I'm a fan. I'm not going to lie. I've been digging in over these last few weeks, and I'm intrigued by that side of the return. But obviously, the main piece, Jesús Luzardo. He's filthy. He's filthy. The Marlins may have gotten the best out of him that we are going to see, but even then, that 3.7 ERA, 200 plus strikeouts guy is kind of exactly what the Phillies are looking for. I think the most underrated part of this move is that the Phillies, if they make the postseason, are going to get to choose from 3 of Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, Jesús Luzardo, and Andrew Painter to throw into the bullpen mix for the postseason. And that's a big deal. All 3 of, let's just say Ranger Suarez has proven himself as a bullpen piece before. Got the final outs of the NLCS in 2022. He is, he's a stone cold killer most of the time. You look at Jesús Luzardo. Jesús Luzardo is filthy. The stuff is the most undeniable part of his game. So that could be a really exciting addition to a postseason bullpen. And Andrew Painter is probably one of, if not the best right-handed pitching prospect in baseball right now. So it's very, very interesting to see them kind of say, okay, maybe we're done adding to the bullpen right now after the addition of Joe Ross. But if they can use this unit to get into the postseason, they've got, 3 new arms that they can kind of throw into that mix, that bullpen mix as well, which I think is a huge part of this trade. On top of that, Luzardo kind of solidifies the Phillies as having, one of, if not the best rotation in baseball. When this rotation is clicking, you've got 3 of the best left-handed options in a rotation in baseball, and then obviously the best pitcher in baseball in Zach Wheeler, and then one of the most dependable in Aaron Nola. And that's exciting, man. I don't think we've seen a rotation like this since 2011, and that is speaking very highly of this group of guys. But it's an exciting group for sure. I can say for myself, I'm really pumped to watch this team and see what they have in store for us from the pitching front.
Yeah. Eli, I do want to ask you, let's talk about the Luzardo trade. We haven't actually spoken about this aside from the spaces that we did the other day. So just your thoughts really quick. And on top of that, just talk about trading with an in-division rival, something that the Marlins seem to have been. I think the last time was the Adam Duvall trade, if I recall.
No, I'll get into that.
Yeah.
So I want to start with like the really grim assessment of that, which is that historically you don't trade inside the division because you play head to head against that team a lot, and that's less so in the current state of affairs, and also because it used to be that winning your division was the main path to making the postseason. The Marlins, as we know, have never, ever, ever won the National League East. They've never really come close, and honestly, I don't think that's top of mind moving forward. I think with this team, they want to maximize postseason appearances over a sustained stretch a few years down the road. And I don't know if there's really that much of an emphasis. I don't know if they really see the difference between a wild card, which there are now 3 different wild card spots, or winning the division. So even if they admit that this is helping the Phillies directly, they see a universe where both teams can make it into the postseason at some point in the future. And that once you get in, even under this current format, that wildcard teams can go pretty deep. They can go all the way into a World Series, and that helping your division rival doesn't necessarily hinder your own chances of eventually getting where you want to go. So I think that is for the in-division part of it. I think the most recent significant deal in division would actually be 2023 David Robertson, when, believe it or not, the Mets were in a selling position. Right. The Marlins were in a clear buying position, and like a week before the deadline in 2023, the Marlins trade one of their better hitting prospects at the time. They trade Marco Vargas. They trade Ronald Hernandez, who we were kind of split on that as a staff. He was another notable piece. They traded a couple teenagers and A-ball to get a rental David Robertson and to
completely forgot about that.
Yeah, it did not go all that well. There's like one moment where they got Robertson. Everybody's like, wow, they finally had their closer. That's like, no, they don't. They just had this guy who actually wasn't all that happy to be in Miami, as it turns out. But that's a bit of a detour. What I wanted to ask Alex about when it comes to Luzardo, from our perspective, we thought it was more likely that this trade would not come together until at least spring training, if not during the season itself.
Yeah,
because he's not pitched in a game since mid-June. The last time he did pitch in a game, he was throwing about 91 mile per hour fastballs, and then it turns out he has his back injury. So from your perspective, what do you make of the timing of it? As nasty as he can be, he's pretty far removed from being that pitcher on the field. There's some uncertainty there.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, first of all, the medicals got done, from what I heard, medicals got done really quickly. It seems like the Phillies were cool with everything that was going on. Marlins, presented all the information available, and it was a done deal, right? And I especially think for the price that you're paying for a pitcher like the fact of the matter is the price tag that they paid for Jesus Luzardo is that of what you would expect to pay for a back-end starter with 2 years of control. That is how I kind of see it, right? The Phillies are not asking him to be this ace that he could be, right? Now, do I believe that he can be that? Absolutely. I am a huge Jesus Luzardo fan. And on top of that, I think that especially when you're I am going to knock on so much wood right now, but the Phillies have been probably the best team in baseball in terms of keeping their pitchers healthy. Phillies haven't had a serious injury to their rotation in the Caleb Cotham era, which is crazy to say, but Aaron Nola has been a workhorse his whole career. Zach Wheeler, who was an injury-plagued pitcher, hasn't been seriously hurt outside of a splintered fingernail while he was zipping up his jeans. He hasn't been seriously hurt in a Phillies uniform. There are so many reasons to love the Phillies' chances here because they've been so good at keeping their pitchers healthy. And again, I'm going to knock on all the wood in the world for that. But again, I think the thing to love about Jesus Luzardo is what could be, right? But even if he goes out there and is giving you, 120, 130 innings, of 4 or 5 ERA ball, that's kind of exactly what you would expect of your fifth starter anyway. So it's a huge upgrade over what the Phillies had. And then I'm sure we're going to talk about this, but in terms of the price tag that they paid, they could have done so much worse. And so it's really, really, again, I look to the Garrett Crochets, the, pitchers of that caliber that are getting these huge, expansive returns, of Kyle Teal and all these other, big name prospects. Starlyn Caba is fantastic. He's spectacular. A top 100 prospect consensus in baseball. But to be able to get an arm of Luzardo's caliber for that headliner, I think you're pretty happy, regardless of, where he stands now health-wise, which personally I'm not concerned about in the slightest, but we'll see.
We definitely will. So if it wasn't Jesus Luzardo, I mean, you guys were in on Crochet, you guys were in on a lot of other guys. Who would have been, I guess, the plan B for the Phillies if it wasn't going to be a Jesus Luzardo?
I don't think there was going to be a plan B. The Phillies have Andrew Painter pretty much locked and loaded. They want to give him some time to mature and to get back to himself in AAA. But I mean, yeah, the Phillies are very blessed right now in that they've got Mick Abel, they've got Seth Johnson, they've got Andrew Painter, they've got Moises Chassé, who's skyrocketing. They have Gene Cabrera, who is doing really. They just added to their 40-man roster. They really have some strong pitching prospects coming down the pipe. So I don't think there would have been a backup. I think this deal was, like you guys said, I mean, I expected this deal to go down at the deadline. I expected the Marlins to prove that Luzardo is what everybody thinks that he is, and then, have him be the crown jewel of the trade deadline. But for some reason they didn't do that, and I do really think that that's a bit of a mistake, just because I think that Luzardo's great. But I think the backup would have been either signing a swingman like they did in Joe Ross and kind of letting Taijuan Walker and Joe Ross play with that fifth starter role, which would have been much sadder than what it is now. But I think it either would have been that or maybe they would have, swung a deal for some other, project pitcher. I just think this deal was probably too good for Dave Dombrowski to pass up. And I think that Crochet, by the way, got really close at the deadline last year. It got really close. And the Phillies were willing to pay top dollar for that caliber of pitcher. The Phillies getting this trade done without dealing from those, top 3-ish prospects is just so exciting. It's so exciting.
So let's talk about the return. It's Starlyn Caba, who was one of the top prospects in the Phillies farm system. Immediately, at least for us, becomes our top position player prospect, number 2. And then Emaarion Boyd, who is more of a defensive-oriented guy, really, really fast, still struggling on the offensive side. But let's talk about Caba, the prized possession of this trade. I mean, we've seen the tweets from a very, very long time ago. You were in on Starlyn Caba, so just talk about him.
He has all the makings of a superstar. He really does. The one thing that I am really down on him for, the power is probably never going to be there. And that is a real shame because outside of his power, there's so much to like, right? He's patient at the plate. He's really selective with pitches, which is, if you're not going to have power, being selective is a great quality. He's really selective with pitches. We will get to the glove in a minute because it's just, he could probably play shortstop at the major league level right now. Every tool, there's something to like. Unfortunately, there being absolutely zero power there is really, really not, it doesn't bode well for him at the plate at the major league level. Again, not everybody can be Luis Arraez when it comes to, just being able to so carefully place your little bloops and things like that, right? He's a completely different story. But Caba is really selective at the plate. There's a lot to like from his hit tool perspective, but he needs that power if he's going to succeed at the major league level. He just does. And I think the Phillies were really down on the fact that power was going to come. They were also that way on William Pergola Jr., who they just traded during the deadline to grab Tanner Banks from the White Sox. Again, fantastic hit tool, pretty decent glove, not as good as Caba's, obviously, but pretty decent glove. Hit really well in the minors last year, and they were just like, hey, we're going to let him go because they really did not think that power was going to come along. But outside of that, the glove is just unbelievable. What I've seen of him, I've seen him in person a couple of times. I've seen him, I've obviously scouted as much video as is available of him. He's incredible defensively. He is, probably Andrelton Simmons-like when it comes to his glove. So he's a really, really, really special fielder. And I think that's huge for the Marlins. I think the Marlins really, really wanted to get their hands on a player like that because the Marlins are a pitching first organization. And having a good shortstop, in your system is only going to make your pitchers better. And so I think that was a big part of this. I can't say enough good things about him. He is stellar. You guys got a great prospect in return. Don't let me saying that the Phillies did really well in this trade deter anybody from thinking that Caba is a fantastic, fantastic prospect. Again, potential to be a superstar here, especially if he can add a little bit of muscle. But Emaarion Boyd, on the other hand, I am very low on. I think I'm the low side here. I know a lot of people that were really encouraged by his second half last year. So it's nothing to worry about, but this is just me personally. I'm just not a huge number one. Again, the power is really lacking here. And he does not have as good of a hit tool. He is very swing happy. Doesn't make a ton of contact. Again, if he's somebody that could probably bunt his way to a 250 average, right? So, this is a guy that if he can learn fundamentals, things like that, he'll be a great bench player. Unfortunately, the power's not there, the hit tool's not there, and I'm really low on his defensive capability, at least at the moment. He's very raw, but his routes are kind of unencouraging. Even those highlights that you see of him, he's taken really wonky routes. And it kind of turning himself around a lot. It's a very raw skill set. It's not to say that he can't be a really solid player, but I was very low on him, and I was very confused as to why he was the secondary piece here, just because I thought the majority of organizations would be pretty low on him, just because of how raw that skill set is. But you're right. He's got 80 grade wheels. He is fast as F. He is really, 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 he's really quick and he's really athletic. So there's reason to, be bullish on the power. There's reason to be bullish on, the athletic factors of his game. Unfortunately, the hit tool is not where you'd want it to be if he were going to be a bench player, right? If he were going to be a certified bench guy, the hit tool is not where you'd want it to be. I'm just not the biggest fan of this kind of profile, but the Phillies do love this kind of profile. So, it's a very interesting secondary piece. I'm not all that high on him, but that is not to say that he can't, refine his game under the Marlins' eye.
Yeah, I agree with both of those assessments right there.
Yep.
With Boyd, I guess it sort of feels. At this moment, the Marlins are taking as many flyers as they can on potential center fielders because that's a huge question mark moving forward. Obviously, Jazz plugged that hole for a couple of years, and now it's a wide open hole again. And so they have guys younger than Boyd in the system that they really like. Dylan Head, Andres Valor, among others. Right. And then above him, there's a couple that maybe we'll squint and see what happens with Victor Mesa Jr. defensively. What happens with maybe Jacob Marcy, if he can hit a little bit more. He's really fun to watch defensively and getting on base. But they have a lot of candidates there and just not really one at this moment that they feel super good about. So that is, and at the same time, now they have a ton of middle infield depth in this organization. Right. And the thing is, Caba, from what I've seen as well, I think he is the best defensive option among all of those.
He's probably the best defender in minor league baseball. I think he is. I mean, he's otherworldly. I think you guys will start to see as you get to see more in-game action of him, but he's so mature for his age. And I think the biggest part about Caba, something that I neglected to mention, he is the hardest worker on the field at all times. He wants it so bad. And that is really exciting. Especially when it comes to a young kid, right? This is not the Sixto Sanchez situation where there are concerns about his conditioning. No, Starlyn's the first guy on the field and he's the last guy off the field. He is a hard worker and he's always working to get better. And that is so encouraging. But I think, Eli, you're hitting the nail on the head in that, like, they are taking flyers on center fielders and shortstops. Like, they want to solidify those two premium defensive positions because this pitching first organization needs that in their future if they're going to succeed. And also something that I'll kind of offhand here, I don't know why Mel Stottlemyre Jr. is not a part of the Marlins organization anymore, but that to me is just the craziest that is the free agent of the Marlins that I am looking where he signs, because I don't know what's going on there, but that seems like the biggest mistake of all time. I think he's so spectacular. But I digress. That's off topic.
You're good.
You did bring up Sixto. I wanted to touch on a related topic there, because this is the first Marlins Phillies trade since the JT Realmuto Sixto blockbuster way back then. And with JT, at least for this upcoming year, he and Luzardo could be battery mates to some extent. This is the final year of his contract. He is, by catching standards, he's getting up there. He's going to be 34 in spring training.
Yeah.
What do you think what's his future looking like with this organization beyond 2025, if there still is one?
It's really interesting. I think that it's going to be a challenge for it's really going to depend on what his year looks like, right? JT has been really struggling with, I think, finding consistency of late in his older age. Obviously, he has been spectacular for the Phillies, but he's still a great hitter. I guess I can't say great, but he's one of the better hitting catchers in Major League Baseball. He is losing a step defensively, I feel. He's never really been the best framer either. But I think that ultimately, if the Phillies want to extend him, a deal will get done. Unless he comes out and does, JT Realmuto things of old this season, I think an extension is definitely within the realm of possibility. But I also think the Phillies are pretty, I don't want to say pretty high on, but I think they feel really comfortable with, Rafael Marchand being an option. He's had a lot of trouble staying healthy, but he's proven at the major league level that he can hit. And not only that, he's proven that the power concerns that everyone had for him in the minor leagues kind of aren't really a factor, because for some reason he's able to hit bombs at the major league level. He's hit more bombs at the major league level than he did in his entire minor league career. So I don't know. It's very interesting to see how that's going to play out. But I think JT would be happy to stay in Philly, and I think the Phillies would be happy to keep him. I'm just not sure how many years they'd be willing to give him, especially as he kind of gets up there in age. But it's going to be interesting. I think ultimately, he's a leader on this team. Everybody loves him. Philly loves him. So I think if both sides are probably looking to get a deal done, then it'll get done.
So now that the Phillies have Luzardo, still have some work to do on the offensive side. So what is next for these Phillies as they look to reclaim the division title and go a little further into the postseason this time around?
Well, reclaim, they have it, but I know what you mean. I think it's difficult to see where an upgrade is coming offensively. The Max Kepler signing, listen, I'll go on record here. I love Max Kepler. Max Kepler has been a peripheral darling for years and years and years, and I've been begging any team that I like to sign Max Kepler. Unfortunately, I don't think he was the answer for the Phillies. I think that another left-handed, hitter in this lineup that is not, a lefty destroyer, it makes their vulnerability to left-handed pitching even more vulnerable, which is okay. But it's what makes me think that there's something else in the tank here. I struggle to see where that upgrade can come. The Phillies are they've promised playing time to everybody that is in their projected opening day lineup, right? So unless there's some big trade coming down the pipe, unless Nick Castellanos is going somewhere, unless Alec Bohm is going somewhere, which I don't think Alec Bohm is going anywhere. I think these rumors have been so overblown over this offseason, because Alec Bohm is the best third baseman available, save Alex Bregman, maybe. Alec Bohm might be better than Alex Bregman, but I don't think anybody's ready for that conversation. Alec Bohm is probably the best third baseman bang for your buck available on a market that is starving for third baseman. And I think that, and Gleyber Torres' deal today, the 1 year, $15 million deal, is a sign of that. Infielders are few and far between right now. And, Gleyber, off a pretty rough year with a lot of question marks in his game, is getting $15 million for 1 year. That's crazy. But anyway, I think that this market is starved for infielders at the moment, and I think that Alec Bohm is probably the best one available. And the Phillies are probably better off keeping him than what he would garner on, the trade block. As you can see, their asks for him have also been astronomical. I don't think they really want to trade him, but they are exploring their options, right? But yeah, I don't to answer your question, I don't know what's next. I don't see how they can upgrade without a really meaningful shakeup to this opening day projected lineup. And I don't know what that looks like, but can you really do better than Nick Castellanos, via trade? Can you really, who is available that is going to make you a more complete ball club that doesn't require you to deal away your cleanup hitter, or your projected cleanup hitter, I should say. So I don't know. It's a really, it's a good question, and one that I really don't have the answer to. I do think that they have addressed a majority of their needs this offseason, albeit through unconventional ways. I think it's a mistake for them to stand pat with where the bullpen is right now. They lost two of the best relievers in baseball to free agency, and then signed one project in Jordan Romano, and seemed to be standing pat, at least from a free agent side, on the bullpen, which I do think is a bit of a mistake. I think that they could do a lot better in terms. They need a right-handed hitter that will damage lefties. That's what they need. How they can get it, I got no idea, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. It is something that I'm certainly twiddling my thumbs and waiting for the answer to. So we're gonna find out, but I'm just as clueless as the next guy. It's tough to see where this team can conceivably upgrade.
And final question on my end is this is a Marlins roster that no longer has Jake Berger, doesn't have what's his name, Jesús Luzardo, soon to not have many of these other relievers and even starting pitchers, depending on what's going to go happen in the trade deadline. Is any of these names scary? I know Johnny Parade is out there and some other guys, but who scares you on this Marlins roster? I know Sandy's coming back, so obviously that may be the easy answer.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sandy's great. I think Sandy is going to be, I hate to say this, but is going to be, that crown jewel of the trade deadline, probably.
Yeah.
I think that, from a prospect perspective, maybe Davison De Los Santos can put something together, but I think I told you guys last time I was on, I'm not high on that profile at the major league level at all. I think that is such an interesting fit for this organization that hasn't really shown that developing hitting is their strong suit. And I think getting a guy like that who was like 100th percentile in chase and whiff rate in the minor leagues, getting him to stop swinging so much is going to be tough. But I will say, I think that there are some reasons to be excited here. I think that there are a few, obviously hitters in this lineup that, will get their fair share of playing time, and maybe they'll get overexposed, but maybe they'll also do, some decent things. That being said, this team, their rotation was, the thing that scared anybody, and now that rotation has been decimated. I mean, what is the future of Braxton Garrett? What is the future of Yuri Perez? What is the future of Sandy? What will Sandy look like when he comes back? There are so many question marks on this roster that I don't think anyone can be intimidated by it, because it's just it's going to be a rough year. I think. And it makes me sad because, again, I say it all the time. I am a closeted Marlins fan. I like seeing this organization succeed. But I really struggle to understand the Bendixian plan here when it comes to, how this team is planning to not compete, but sell tickets in the near future. There's nobody that you can slap on to like who is going to be, it's going to be Sandy on the opening day scorecard and yearbook, but who else? Who knows Otto Lopez's face just by looking at it? Who knows, I don't know, Kyle Stowers' face. Just it's Kyle Stowers, Mom. Nobody. So
do you know who this face is? That is their big.
Yeah.
That's a big free agent addition this offseason. That's Eric Wagaman.
That's the new manager?
Not the new manager. No. The new platoon first baseman, something. Eric Wagaman. He debuted with the Angels last year.
Wait, shout out Rob Orr. Because, and I'm gonna send him this clip later. Rob was in. I have a text chain with a couple of industry folks that I just we talk about baseball moves across the board. But he was begging, if the Phillies were going to trade Alec Bohm, he was begging that the Phillies sign Eric Wagaman to a guaranteed deal. He was begging. If you want some good content about Wagaman, go subscribe to Baseball Prospectus and read. I think Rob did a whole piece on him. But it is so fascinating to see how hyper fixated he was on Wagaman. I don't know, guys. I wouldn't be as disappointed in that signing if you are disappointed. There's a lot to like there, at least from what he showed last year. So maybe, just like Jonah Bride, maybe the Marlins found something here.
Not wrong.
But if that's the most excited you can get about a player on this roster, yikes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what Eric Wagaman looked like. He looks older than 27.
You would think he's like a random random hitting coach or something.
Yep. I don't even know what the name of. I'll have to familiarize myself, but the name of the Dodgers first base coach that's now the Marlins manager.
Clayton McCullough.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is, but it's
Yeah.
What do we think of him? What's the news on Clayton McCullough? What do we think?
It's fine. It's a different vibe than Skip Schumacher had for sure, and
I just can't believe Skip is gone. Like, I can't believe a year after winning Manager of the Year, he's just gonna go. Like,
they did with Joe Girardi.
Oh, we don't even need to go there. I don't need to talk about that man right now. But whatever. It's a very interesting time to be a Marlins fan, and I think what I will say is, being somebody who, I started my Twitter account and my baseball media career, if you can even call it that, during a terrible rebuild, during the most painful rebuild I can possibly imagine, which was the Phillies rebuild, where nobody was on the same page. There was so much just miscommunication and awful pandering and all these terrible things that just led to fans getting their hopes up and getting crushed one year after another. And what I will say is, it is probably one of the most fun times to be a baseball fan, because you can start rooting for stories and individuals over just rooting for your team. And I know that it feels terrible right now to be kind of relaunching into this long process and, all the things. It can be really fun if you make it fun. And you are very lucky, Marlins fans, that you have this team, that you have this fish on first crew to guide you through this season, because there is no better outlet when it comes to having fun than these guys right here. So I think that even though it's going to suck for a little while, and there is not going to be a lot of competition to root for, there are going to be a lot of fun stories and a lot of fun things to do. And you will look back on these years very fondly when you're remembering some guys after the Marlins win the World Series in 2045. But I digress.
Yeah, they'll lose 100 games next year, but somehow still go 7-6 against the Phillies for whatever reason.
As was the case
in like 2019 and 2018. It's just,
I can't wait.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great.
All right, I think we'll wrap it up here, Eli. Anything else you've got?
No, that's great. I think this is going to be the final full-length pod recording on our channel in 2024.
Yeah.
So it has, it's been a year. It really has. It has been an exhausting year mentally for a lot of Marlins fans as well. And we appreciate everybody that has stuck with us. And of course, we appreciate all the great guests who have come on. Lastly, but certainly not least, Alex Carr, driving us into the new year. Thank you, Alex.
It truly is always the biggest pleasure. I will move mountains to appear on this show because I just love chatting with you guys. So thanks for having me.
We appreciate you having you on. So we'll wrap it up here from Alex, Eli, and myself. We'll see you guys all in 2025. Peace out and go Fish.
Go Marlins.